Alright, so welcome to episode 2 of the Superflow podcast. In this episode, I'm speaking to Nick Abraham. Nick is the Chief Operating Officer of JetPack, a venture studio with a portfolio of agencies and SaaS companies. So, we're going over a lot of agency stuff in this one, including crucial aspects of what it takes to run an agency. It's literally a masterclass condensed in the form of a podcast if you're an emerging agency owner. Hope you enjoy this episode. Let's go. So welcome to the podcast, Nick. Really excited to have you here. And I'm very curious to know about all your automation stuff and the agency stuff, and of course, JetPack and the agency before that. And of course, you guys, he might come across as somebody who's probably, I don't know, like 38 or 40 or something, but the guy's young. And so I'm really excited to have you here, Nick.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited to be here as well.
All right, great. So let's get started, Nick. Let's just go straight for tell us a little bit about who you are. What have you done before this, and how have you reached this point of being the Chief Operating Officer of JetPack, which is a venture studio, and of course that concept itself is interesting. So tell us a bit more about yourself and help us out here. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Nick Abraham, 22 years old, not 38 or 40 yet. Young guy, I've been doing this entrepreneur stuff since I was like literally in middle school. I used to sell socks to other kids, custom socks. And that was like my first ever business. And so I've always kind of had this side hustle kind of idea. My freshman year in college, I actually started an agency that, we basically would do Instagram management for like medical professionals. And I grew that pretty quickly. I got to like 17 clients in under 3 months. And, it just kind of got me into business, right? It really taught me how to, set up everything, how everything should operate, how I should act as a leader, and things of that nature. I ended up closing that agency down just because the margins were really low, right? Instagram management is not something that you could really define an ROI on, especially the way we ran it. And so it was very hard for us to retain customers. And so, in this process of kind of figuring out how to get clients, it led me down a whole entire rabbit hole of learning B2B lead gen. And so, that's where majority of my skill set lies in. It's really just outbound sales. And so, I started an agency really right after that, called Elevate Leads, all in the B2B outbound sales space. And so what we would do is a completely performance based. We would work with early agencies, early enterprise SaaS companies that just didn't have that sales team in place. And we would basically just focus on booking their calendars with appointments. And so, most of it came down to personalized cold emails at scale, doing a whole bunch of LinkedIn automation, kind of growth hacking a lot of the things just to kind of flood their pipelines with appointments. And then about, a month ago, Sam Thompson from JetPack, he reached out to me. He was running his agency called Leadbird, which is also B2B lead gen. And he saw how we were kind of running at Elevate Leads and was just very interested in bringing me on board just because I am a very operational type of guy. And, so they acquired us. It was kind of more of a merger, if anything. And, basically now we're doing B2B lead gen at Leadbird, similar setup, different offer, a little bit more scalable. And then after kind of being there for a little bit, he just brought me on to his venture studio, JetPack, to run all the ops across the entire board of companies. And so, JetPack has about 6 SaaS companies in their portfolio, as well as about 2 agencies and a lot more companies that are about to launch. And so, that's kind of a quick background on me.
Yeah, that's not a quick background right at the end where you say 6 SaaS ventures and 2 agencies running, and I'm sure a lot of the people who are listening to this are probably trying to get one SaaS company done, and probably another friend of theirs is doing one agency. So it's not an easy task at all. And I think actually, you know what, guys, whoever's listening here, we're going to actually find out how Nick actually does that, because it's not possible for a single person to do all of these things just by himself. You can be as organized as you can be, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of things that you need to put in place in terms of systems and tools that you use. And that's Nick is probably, let's say, the most referenced person that I've come across on Twitter recently when it comes to systems and all these guys. So I'm really curious to listen to that. So can you tell us a little bit more about the agency itself and the 2 agencies that you mentioned? What do they do? Who are the clients like? What are the a bit more about that?
Yeah, so Leadbird is, B2B sales pretty much. It's just BDR work, SDR work. So we take care of helping our clients fill up their pipeline. And so, it's just a whole bunch of doing the B2B activity that most people and most companies don't do, kind of like the grunt work. And then Automatic is our no code development agency. And so we actually help people build out their MVPs for using pretty much no code tools. We have a pretty sick team on there. David's an absolute genius. I mean, everyone thinks of me as this automation guy, but David, he takes it to another level with automation. And so we actually rely on him a lot. And, we have a much, we have a very productized offer coming in that space that I think will absolutely crush the markets with automation as well. But yeah, those are kind of like the two agencies, and kind of like you mentioned, right? Running all these companies, starting all these companies, it's very hard, right?
Yes.
But within our like kind of environment, I guess you could say is the right word. Much of the companies kind of rely on each other, right? Like if we're launching any kind of SaaS product inside the B2B space, Leadbird is the company that launches all the outbound stuff that, the SaaS company is needed to do, right? And that's kind of how we're able to grow some of these companies and be able to alleviate the work. It's because we own all these other companies that can pretty much feed and uplift that other company. It's kind of like a flywheel model. And so that's kind of where I see us having the most success, just building around things that will really alleviate our products.
Got it. All right. So to simplify for for simplicity's sake here, yeah. So uh, there's B2B lead gen that you're doing, which is mainly I'm understanding is cold outbound is what you do on behalf of B2B companies basically who want more clients. That's my understanding so far in terms of Leadbird. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Perfect. Yeah. And so it's not easy to run that kind of an agency. Yeah. I mean, while it seems like a very simple thing to do, and a lot of cold email, stuff is always made out to be very simple, but there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that happens within that. So how do you, think about, let's say, getting clients for something like that? So there are companies which would, of course, require an agency, and there are a lot of people, of course, who will offer, let's say, Facebook ads and these other things that are going on. How does one go about getting clients? So let's say, for something like Leadbird, or where you're helping another company get leads via cold email outbound overall. Yeah.
Yeah. So specifically internally for us, like, we just do what we do best, which is lead gen. That's how we fill up our pipelines. We don't run any kind of ads. Well, not yet. We're probably going to launch that soon. But, for us to fill up our pipelines for our sales team, we're literally just doing lead gen at such a high level, right? Email, LinkedIn, omni-channel outreach. We're just so good at it. So, we never have a lead flow problem internally with us in terms of client acquisition. For our clients, right, to get their pipelines filled. As much as people want to think that, it's really about all these automations and sequences, when it comes to filling up your pipeline, and really making outbound sales work, it's 99% of the work comes down to, what is the offer? Like, what are you selling? And then who are you selling it to? And so if you look at a lot of these early stage companies, they don't ever dial in on those two main things. And because of that, when they start to do outbound sales, they hire a company like us, or they can hire another company very similar to us. They just don't see the results at scale. And it's because they don't know what their offer is, and they don't know who they should be targeting and who they should be selling to. So if you can have those two things dialed in, outbound sales becomes very, very easy, because now you just have to focus on sending out more outreach, because you know that the target that you're reaching out to is going to be interested and is going to be willing to hop on a call with you. And then it's just a sales game at that point.
Nick, you said a lot of things there we'll have to unpack. So there's you mentioned email automation in the beginning. So you guys use email automation at bulk, for getting these leads for your own agency as well as for your clients. You also use LinkedIn, is what I'm understanding. You'll have to break this down, because I know all this stuff you've covered very well on your Twitter with your threads, and there's a lot of Zapier, and I see a lot of Zaps involved, and it's actually I mean, that's one of the ways in which how I found you as well, and decided to reach out because I read through your threads, and I was like, this is some really good stuff for anybody who's, let's say, looking to set up an agency. So let's say I'm an agency owner, Nick, yeah, and I want to get more leads for my agency. Based on what you just told me right now, what would you recommend, and what would be your process, when, let's say, to get more clients? Like, what would be your advice to someone like that?
Yeah, so I would look at two things before I even think about doing any kind of automation. I would look at the offer, right? So what are you selling, right? And then how can you separate yourself, right? So let's take an example, right? Web design. Web design is overplayed. It's kind of saturated. Everyone and anyone can do web design nowadays, right? And so how can you make your offer stand out, right? So if you're doing web design, what can you do specifically that's going to make you stand out? So, you could look at things like, okay, well, if I do a website, this part, I can, I do it so well that I can guarantee that, anybody that lands on that page is going to have this amount of conversion, and think about how you can make your offer stand out. Because, let's say I reach out to people saying, hey, I can fix your website, but you reach out to the same people saying, hey, I can make sure that your website converts at this percentage every single time. Like, who's going to get that deal? It's going to be you every single time. So you have to look at your offer and see how you can make it stand out. And then you want to look at the target, right? So you want to avoid spaces where people are getting hit up all the time. And usually it's, small to medium-sized businesses. They're usually targeting the founders and CEOs. Look for some, bigger companies. Look at companies that are 11 to 50 or 20 to 50 or 50 plus in employee headcount. And then, look at some of these, instead of going after the founder and CEO every time, maybe it makes more sense to kind of, speak to a COO or a managing director or, the CMO or something of that nature. So, just kind of not doing what everyone else does and kind of, just getting a little bit more specific with it is what I would focus on doing.
Perfect. And then you would say Twitter, LinkedIn, these are the kinds of places that you would look for these people, just connecting with them or showcasing your work. Yep.
Yeah, I would probably just go LinkedIn. And I mean, it depends on where you're at, right? Like if you haven't signed any clients, then I would just get extremely personalized, do a whole bunch of LinkedIn outbound, as well as just following up via phone calls. A lot of people are always wondering, okay, how can I get more appointments? How can I get more demos? And if you're a one-man show, the easiest way is to pick up your phone and start calling these people and asking them for their business. But most people are kind of scared to do that. And so that's why they don't.
Right. And I think a lot of that is also, I think, down to some prep work that they need to do. And I think a lot of, a sort of a good way to do that would be, let's say, writing out a cold email and then setting up the call itself. So you're sort of, let's say, getting your basics in place. Do you recommend that for a lot of people as well, that they can maybe start with a cold email and then move to a call?
Yeah. So, I mean, like our workflow with our entire team is, we'll send an initial cold email and then we'll send a LinkedIn connection request immediately after. And then there's probably like 2 or 3 drip messages in there. And then after that, if we still haven't got a response, then our outbound callers, which is our SDRs, they'll go ahead and call them and do a follow-up call. And then they'll leave a voicemail. And if after all that, we still haven't got a call back or nothing has happened, then we just mark that opportunity as dead and we'll leave it be. So typically each contact is getting about 7 hits before we let it go.
Right. Okay. And that's with the currently the agency that you're running right now, the 2 agencies that you're running right now.
Yep, exactly.
All right. And that you're now doing at scale, because of course you guys know how to do that. So you're now sort of completely scale that up, and what are the kind of, like, how many emails are you guys sending out right now? When you're doing something like that?
Yeah, I'd say in a month we're sending out about probably around like 1,500. And then, yeah, I would say about 1,500. I would say every week we're doing about 20 to 25 demos. But sometimes, a lot of these guys that hop on calls with us, they might not be at the point where they need us. And so we'll have to turn them down. But yeah, that's kind of what our numbers are looking at.
Nice. And then you think that's, which of course, for somebody who's sort of, let's say, signing a lot of these people up, they can of course do that at a smaller scale. They don't have to do it at the scale that you guys are doing it at. But do you think from that point on, it moves to a little bit of, let's say, using, that using automation to sort of do all of these things? You think, because otherwise manually doing that is sort of, let's say, it's almost impossible at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to use automation for all that. Like, I mean, it doesn't really matter what kind of like platforms you use. There's so many platforms that can do all this, minus the outbound calls. But yeah, you definitely want to leverage automation because I mean, the time it would take to send out 1,500 custom cold emails and do the follow-ups and send the LinkedIn automation request would just not be worth the effort.
Right.
Obviously automate it.
And what kind of tools do you recommend? Maybe you guys also have an internal tool that you use, which other people can also use, or do you guys have external tools that?
Yep. So we're in the process of I mean, we're really in this B2B space. I want to own every tool that we use or have every tool that we use because much of what I speak about is B2B outbound sales. And so, it makes perfect sense to kind of own a lot of the tools, but tools that we use right now, we're testing out Skylead, we're testing out Expandy. I mean, we've tested out Expandy. My friend Ty Frankel, he's coming out with his own tool called LeadLink. We've played around with that. We played around with Mailshake and a couple other email sending platforms, but there's so many different tools. There's ups for some tools and there's downs for some tools. There's no perfect tool that I've seen on the market yet that has really addressed all pain points that a lot of people that do outbound sales do.
So are you guys looking at like sort of coming up with your own tool like this point of time?
It's definitely on our map. Maybe Q4, maybe early Q1.
Right.
But right now we kind of have to get some. So like some of the other products we're working on right now. I mean, they're already done. We're using them internally. So we have this one tool called Inboxy, does like warm up deliverability for emails, and so that one's probably like the best one in the market in my opinion. And then we also have like an AI line writing SaaS. So these tools are all used within our outbound sales stuff. And so we have a lot of the smaller ones, and then we have a couple Chrome extensions that are going to come out as well for like lead scraping and things of that nature.
Got it. And for somebody who's listening, so of course your recommendation would be just pick one and start, Otherwise.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, honestly, like if you're just starting, like don't even worry about all the automations and stuff. Dude, just pick up the phone and start calling, whoever your ideal customer is. Get on LinkedIn and just manually send out the connection request. People like to over analyze and over complicate things. They're trying to figure out how to make all these complex workflows. But there's no need if you're sub $10,000 in MRR, right? If you're below 10K in MRR, there's no reason for you to understand how to do all these crazy systems and processes and workflows. You need to go out there and prove that you found product market fit, and then have a productized solution, and that your backend is really automated and the fulfillment can scale. And then you just need to focus on acquiring a lot of customers. And then this is one thing I like to tell a lot of people is you're never going to be able to fully prepare for scale, right? There's no such thing, right? You just have to kind of go after it, acquire as many customers as you can, and then let stuff break. You just have to let your systems break, your processes break. You have to just see what breaks and then go back and fix it. So the next customer you bring on doesn't have to go through, the mistakes that you might have caused to the customer before.
Okay, that's it. Now the thing that of course comes with using tools, Nick, is a lot of people then end up with just spamming people with stuff. And I've seen a lot of course, that's the default because the tool, is sold to you as if it's a magic bullet, but it's not. And then, you end up sort of, let's say, automating a bunch of stuff, sending out, if you're talking about scraping emails, people go and scrape out some 1,000 emails. They, bulk send it out via some sort of software. And then they sort of cry about why automation doesn't work for them, when it comes to getting clients. And so how important do you think personalization is when you're doing something like this? Even if you're, let's say 10K and above or below, how important do you think is, let's say, personalization here?
Like on my Twitter, or on Twitter, in the space that we're all in, everyone overlooks that, like personalization isn't the biggest thing that matters in the cold email. It's the offer, right? And just having good copy and having the right target, right? Like if you're looking at like enterprise sales, you don't need to personalize every single message. You seriously don't, right? Like you could, like what's going to get that deal across is more of, is it the right time for them to be able to purchase something? Like, are they currently looking for what you're providing? And then who you're targeting, right? Like those are 99% more effective than having a personalized first line. And then you have to also look at like, a lot of these guys on Twitter, they hire like first line writers for, $8 to $10 per hour to write lines specifically for the prospects and then plug those in their cold emails. Yes, it's a great strategy, but if you kind of look at, if you kind of look at it from like a time cost analysis, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because, let's say your appointment set rate is 10% per every 100 emails. I'm just saying numbers. Okay. So that means, you book 10 appointments with the first line writer, right? But to send out 100 emails, it's going to probably take a lot more time than if I sent out, 200 emails and had a 5% appointment set rate, right? Like, when you kind of look at it like that, it makes more sense to kind of use something like, AI personalization to write these first lines and just send out more amount of emails to get that same amount of booking.
Okay, so you're saying the offer definitely trumps any kind of, personalization is great for, sort of, let's say, not sounding like, it's a copy paste kind of an email. But then beyond that, the main thing is the offer. It's just going to come down to that.
Yeah, no, 100%.
All right.
I think the offers.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, of course, immediately to the agency world, something like an offer sounds ridiculous, yeah, because while they're in the business of marketing, something like an offer for their own agency services sounds very alien to a lot of people. How do you think like they should package it up? Can you give us some example of maybe what you've done, with the Instagram agency or what you guys are doing right now?
In terms of offers and stuff?
Yeah, like just maybe a couple of examples of like what would an offer for any kind of an agency look like? Because I know for sure I've met too many agencies who don't understand this. They think that if they're designing a website, they're competing with the guy who's doing it for whatever, let's say if they're charging $1,000, somebody else is charging $500. They think like that, but actually at the end of the day, I know offer creation is something completely different, having sold stuff for much higher than what its actual cost is. And so I understand that, but can you share some examples of what would an offer for an agency look like?
Yeah, so it really is dependent on what you're selling. There's millions of marketing services. So, it really, I can't really give a good example of like a offer. I don't really want to put our offer out there because, I don't want people to copy us because,
No, but from the older one, maybe from the Instagram time, maybe the one that you showed.
Yeah, I can give that one. So with that offer, it was simple. It was just, we'll do one post a day with social media management on Instagram, and then we'll take care of the daily engagement and grow your account. I can't remember by the exact percentage, but we have like a percentage on there, and then we give a money back guarantee on that as well.
Right.
But that wasn't really like, that offer was good, but it wasn't a scalable offer, right? Because it took a lot more work. And it wasn't really worth it in terms of like margins. So that's where it fails. But to kind of craft a good offer, it all comes down to market research and really knowing who your ideal customer is and if they really want to purchase things, and if you want to really figure out if your offer is going to convert, it's pretty simple. Just call your customer and ask them if you can ask them a couple questions and see if they're interested in what you're selling, right? And in that call, you're not trying to pitch them, you're just trying to get feedback, right? And so, what we used to do is I used to literally call my prospects, and I would tell them I go to the school near them in their city, and I'm doing a survey for a marketing class, and I'd literally just ask them and see if they're interested in what I'm selling. And if they're not, I would ask them why they're not interested in it and figure out what the pain points are and why, things like that happen. And so, yeah.
You think a lot of agencies sort of like, let's say, don't do that? They don't, spend enough time? Because I know a lot of them spend a lot of time delivering the service. And then I do know that there's a lot of, setting up the pricing and all of, the offer itself and all of these things based on what the other guy is selling.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like, you said it right there, right? Like a lot of agencies, they don't do this is honestly not even just agencies. Most business owners don't do, the number one thing, which is market research, right? Like that's the most important thing that's underlooked. Like you have to know your market. That's how you craft your offer. And your offer is what's going to convert, whether you're running paid ads or if you're, doing outbound sales. Like that's ultimately what's going to take your business from 10 to 20.
Right. Got it. And then, of course, something that I found very useful is trying to figure out the ROI of whatever service you're providing to the customer. So so let's say the formula that I use to try and figure out, let's say if I want to arrive at an offer, I'm first going to try and figure out whatever I'm providing, what is the ROI of that particular service to to my end customer, to their business. That's the way I look at it. Do you also sort of look at offer creation in a similar way, where if you're making a website, what is the value or the amount or the ROI that the company will make, by having a better website? Is that a good way to put, let's say, the offer creation bit?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you should look at how your offer can either save them time or money.
Okay, that's
Especially when it comes to like B2B, like that. Those are like the two biggest things that they're looking for. They're either looking to make more money, save more money, or save time.
Got it. That's what I was looking for. So we had to go round and round, but then eventually I was trying to find like a very simple thing that people can understand. So absolutely makes a lot of sense. But okay, cool. So Nick, you helped us get a bunch of clients in this hypothetical situation. But how do I run the delivery? How important do you think is client onboarding? And having systems and processes at the back end, so you don't keep on doing the same thing again.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at all agencies, there's four really key pieces. There's the lead gen side, there's the sales side, there's the onboarding side, and then there's the fulfillment, right? Or actually, then the fifth thing, retention, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, after you've taken them through the lead gen side, you've closed the deal, contracts went through, it's all good. Now you have the onboarding. Onboarding is so important but overlooked, right? And onboarding, this is where you set the standards. You let them know what the deliverables are going to be like, and you set the expectations, right? And if you don't properly do those kind of things, you're going to see your fulfillment suffer, you're going to see your retention suffer. And so for onboarding, what I would recommend to any agency that's listening is make sure you have some kind of onboarding form, right? A form that they fill out after the deal has gone through, that pretty much answers any question that you have to get your service or your fulfillment started, right? And make sure you look that over. You talk to them about any discrepancies, and then you should hop on a call with them after they fill out that form. And on that form or on that call, you should be going through pretty much a slide deck. And on that slide deck, you need to be talking about things like, this is what you can expect in terms of results. This is how you do communication. This is what you won't do. This is who you reach out to for this problem. If this happens, you need to have all those scenarios lined out and laid out, so your clients aren't confused and they know what the next steps are. And so this just makes you look very professional, because now they can trust you. They know that you know exactly what to do in terms of processes and steps. And, they're going to allow you to kind of breathe. And then they also understand their boundaries, right? Like, if you clearly tell them, hey, I'm only going to do 1 to 3 edits every single month on your site, do not ask me for more. You're not going to have a client that's constantly hitting you up every single day saying, hey, I want this color changed to this color, and I want this, and all that stuff. So set those expectations, set those boundaries, and, just let them know what's going on. And then, after onboarding, you got the fulfillment side. And so, a lot of people, they wait to hire like account managers, which I think is a very big mistake, right? You as a CEO, if you're the founder or the CEO of a company, you cannot do sales, lead gen, fulfillment, onboarding, and all these things all together. You need to have a dedicated person that talks to the clients and maintains that relationship. And so that's an account manager's role. And so you want to remove yourself from these conversations as soon as you can, just so you have the ability to kind of, work on what you do best. And so, and then the other thing is like avoid having them, letting them have like direct access to you as much as possible. And they go through the account manager to get anything taken care of, and setting those boundaries is very important so you can continue on fulfillment. And fulfillment, it varies on what your service is, but obviously you want to deliver to exactly what you stated, on the sales call, on the onboarding call, and give exactly what the deliverable is. And then retention is all about communicating with your client, helping to make sure that any of their concerns are addressed, and ultimately helping them get results. That's what retention is all about.
Yeah. So actually, before we get into retention, because there's a lot of stuff within that, because there's upsells and there's of course retaining the client for the existing stuff. I just want to touch a little bit upon. I want to ask you a little bit more about, let's say, fulfillment and your onboarding process. And within that, how important do you think is having something like a standard operating procedure, like an SOP? Because I know a lot of agencies, I would say 99.9 of the agent, 99.9% of the agencies don't have it. But I do feel that everybody desperately needs one, and they sort of fail to put together things. How important you think is, because it's not just enough to bring somebody in like an account manager. Yeah, that person can turn things around on the wrong side if you don't have systems in place or some sort of, let's say, SOP in place. So how important do you think is that when it comes to onboarding or fulfillment?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you have to have systems in place. I mean, you there's no way anyone can scale their company past, 30K to 50K in MRR without systems, right? But here's the other thing, right? Like if you're, once again, sub $10,000 in MRR, you don't have, more than 5 customers. Don't worry about the systems, right? You build systems as you go, right? So, when they're on the, and the other thing is like people will build these systems and then not update them, right? Like the thing about systems is that you have to optimize them, right? So like, if problems start to come and arise, like they will in any kind of agency, you got to kind of look at where that problem is coming from, what system that's, coming directly correlated to, and fix that system. So, but yeah, I mean, to answer your question, systems are the bread and butter of any agency that's looking to really be able to scale.
Right, and it just in this context of systems and getting your, let's say, first hires, or for your agency, or I know a lot of people who are solo, let's say, agency sort of, let's say, owners, or maybe 2-3 people who got together, but then now they're struggling to sort of get people in. How do you think they should actually go about documenting these processes? Because it's one thing for you and I to sort of let's say, theoretically have a conversation about, let's say, an SOP. It's another let's say, thing to, while you're running the agency. How do you think, like a very simple? So I mean, what I've done in the past, with agency work is I just make sure that I have some sort of a Trello board or something like that, trying to document as much as possible. But I've actually failed quite a bit at it. Typically what I would do is I would just get on a Zoom call and try to speak out and what the process is and have a recording of it. Do you like sort of recommend something similar or something like that?
Yeah, so I mean, SOPs, I mean, you got to put them in. What we do is we put them inside of Notion, right? And so I learned this from Ty, but we basically we have 4 questions in the SOP: what, when, where, and why, to address like what that system is, and give a brief overview. And then we include a video of us executing that system. And then below the video, we have detailed steps that are written out one by one on what it looks like. And then below that, we have a section called resources. And so, if there's anything else that the system may include, or you may need some kind of background knowledge on, those resources will kind of direct you to kind of help you get a better understanding of the overview. And then, so we have our systems, and then we also have a sheet, and this sheet is basically like a job role sheet, right? So it like, let's say, for example, we'll have an account manager sheet, and it basically defines what your steps, or basically defines what your role is within the company, how you help in the overall scheme of the company, like what you're doing specifically, how it helps the company. And then it looks at what your daily tasks are. And then it has all the SOPs that, show you how to execute those daily tasks. So you don't ever have to worry. And so whenever we onboard a new, anybody into any one of our companies, we're able to hand them this sheet, and they know exactly what they need to do in terms of execution. And so that's how we're able to really have a fast onboarding process with employees.
Yep. We've used a similar thing before. I really like it. I came across Ty. I think you referenced Ty Frankel. I think I came across the same. I think that the thread that he put together last week, is similar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tag your threads and some of the threads of Ty in the description of the podcast, so everybody can access it. Absolutely, I think having that in place is critical, because I think what happens is that you might also have other employees come in and sort of replace the current employee, and the handover between each other is very poor. So a lot of agencies actually this is very common with agencies as well. I'm sure, Nick, you've come across something similar. Is when your star sort of, let's say, star employee leaves, and then suddenly the agency is back to where it was maybe 2 years back. Because they didn't have a way of documenting, what is actually going on. So. Like 100% agree on what you're saying, which of course brings us a little bit more about the retention pieces. Okay, cool. A nice little agency in the cloud has now got an account manager and is running some business. Question is, how do you retain clients? Because this is something that a lot of agency folks face. Is a client stays with you for 3 to 4 months, and then they just want to leave for whatever reason. And now, like, what is your sort of, let's say, thought on that? What are your strategies on that?
Yeah, I mean, retention is, there's a huge correlation between retention, communication, and actually delivering results, right?
Mm-hmm.
And much of that is related to the onboarding call, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes clients will come in, they have these huge expectations for you.
Mm-hmm.
And since you didn't properly address them inside of the onboarding call or the sales call to let them know exactly what the deliverables are and what they can expect, they end up leaving you because they thought you were going to go do some other stuff when you really didn't, right? So that's kind of how I look at retention. And then communication, right? A lot of these business owners, they know what it's like to run a business. So if you mess up, they've been there, they've done that, right? And so the agencies that and the founders that are kind of scared to talk to their clients and let them know that they messed up are the ones that are going to constantly be having a high churn rate with their customers, right? So if you mess up, communicate with your client, let them know what went wrong and how you're going to fix it, right? And that's what is going to help you, because at the end of the day, you're human, you're not going to be perfect. There's no business in the world that's going to be 100% perfect every single time. And so if you can communicate with your clients, they're going to be a lot more willing to stay around and give you another chance than if you don't. And so that's something we stress across the board, just to make sure we're communicating with our clients. And then the third thing, right, just the service and the delivery, you're getting them the results that they intended. That's the hugest piece. Like if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to get you 30 to 50 appointments every single month, guaranteed, and that's the reason why they came on board, then make sure you're delivering on that. And if you're not, then there's going to be problems that occur. And so those are what I'm seeing.
Right. And then it's a very interesting point that you made, that actually the onboarding call is what's actually going to dictate, apart from fulfillment, of course, where the retention piece is going to go. Because if you nail the onboarding, you're always going to reference back to the client saying, hey, this is what we agreed on. Okay, this is what we discussed on the onboarding call. This is what we've delivered. How about we do this for the next 90 days again, or something on those lines? You think that's how important the onboarding, because you said it's overlooked, but do you think that's how important it actually is, the onboarding call itself?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's a very important piece. Like, I mean, we see it within our agency, right? At one point, our churn was pretty high, right? And if we add, and then there's the other thing, like if you're going to lose customers no matter what, like there's no way you retain a customer from day one to the 10th year, right?
Yep.
I mean, you will see that, right? There's definitely cases where you see that. But when a customer leaves, like it's totally okay. It happens, don't get super, upset about it, but ask them, why did you leave? And I feel like a lot of agencies don't do that, because now you can find out what the pain point was and go fix the solution or create a solution for that problem, right? And so, when we asked our customers, okay, hey, what's the reasoning why you're leaving? And then, the main thing they said was the expectations. They thought they were going to get something else than what we delivered. And, and then that let me know, okay, well, we need to do a better job on setting the expectations. And so now I go back to the account manager. I look at our onboarding pitch deck. I change up the verbiage and I tell her what needs to be changed and what needs to be addressed. And now we haven't had that problem, and so that's kind of how, you kind of make a loop within your business to kind of fix these issues that will come up. And that's how you kind of, strive to get a perfect business, even though it's not going to be perfect, but, you aim to get it there.
Got it. Yeah. So Nick, we're going to just go a little bit into, tell us about the, this is guys, just me asking him about who are the, who are the interesting people, or who are the people you learn from, because you mentioned with a lot of clarity about the agency business, which I know for sure, having spoken to a lot of people, having been in the business for some time, that people aren't as clear. So, where does Nick get his inspiration from? What are the kind of people that you follow or you speak to? Give us some names.
Yeah. So, it really, I mean, specifically, I don't know. That's a hard one. I mean, I read a lot. That's where I get a lot of my knowledge from.
Nice.
Reading. So I mean, I don't know the authors of most of these books that I read. I can't try to think right now, but I can't think on the spot. But
give us your Twitter friends. Give us your Twitter friends. Who are your Twitter
yeah. I
friends?
mean, definitely. I mean, Sam Thompson. He understands product positioning so well. Like, I don't think I know anybody else in the world that knows product positioning like the way he does. He knows what's going to sell. And that's, at the end of the day, the biggest thing when it comes to businesses. You have to know what offer is going to crush it, right? We said that a million times on this call, and he knows how to do that really well. Ty Frankel, he understands how to operate. He's an operational kind of guy, just like myself. And so, whenever I have a system in place, I'll always throw it to him and get his feedback on it, see what I can do to kind of make it better. And he's always very, very good at that. So those are two guys that I look up to and, ask for feedback all the time. Martel, he's really good at sales. He handles all our sales at Leadbird. I've never seen anyone close the amount of calls that he does. His closing rate is phenomenal. So just learning how he carries himself during the sales calls has been amazing. And then a couple other guys that I really look up to inside of this business space is Eric. These guys aren't really on Twitter, but Eric and Shaw, they've helped us build a lot of the SaaS tools that we have. They're just amazing tech guys that just understand how to create the absolute best products for the end user, which is absolutely amazing, and I admire at a high level. And then Connor from Syntax, he, if anybody wants to learn how to growth hack and do all this B2B outbound sales stuff, he's the guy to reach out to. And he's scaled his agency massively within the last 2 years. So he's also another one of the guys I look up to. But most of all, the biggest teacher that's helped me the most is just failure, learning how to fail and just getting better every single time. That's really about it.
I know a lot of people on Twitter are going to probably copy that and make it a formula for for the next tweet, which is going to be they're going to coach Nick Abraham to be like, the biggest teacher is the failure. Yeah, so I really like that, but that's actually the truth as well. And you actually, by mentioning all these people, something interesting came up, which normally I don't get into, the kinds of people that people talk about when they name them. But I really like this because I think a lot of people within the agency space don't communicate with other agency owners. They sort of think that somehow they're just going to be in their little sort of thing, and they don't exchange notes or get feedback with each other. You think that's like something which has helped you by being a little more collaborative and open, rather than just being in your own thing? Or have you seen that as well with the agency owners?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I actively reach out to guys that have agencies that are way above mine to see what I'm messing up on and how I can get to their level. For example, I reached out to Alex Makua, and he basically he runs probably one of the fastest growing agencies in America. I think he's about to pass the number one guy very soon. I literally reached out to him and asked him, hey, this is how I'm running things. What am I doing wrong? Can I pay you for consultation so you can kind of look at my business and tell me exactly what's going wrong? And he did, and he gave me some great advice, and we implemented that advice immediately, and we're already seeing a massive return on that alone. And so, honestly, I saw the biggest growth in my business when I took away that mindset that, hey, I shouldn't be showing my stuff and showing my secrets to my competitors. I'm more than happy to do that, right? Because they're, at the end of the day, going to be a friend of mine. And there's enough money and business in the world for everyone to have their own piece, right? And so, if I ever need feedback, like I actively reach out to people that are in the same industry and same space as I am, to see what I can do on improving our business.
That's brilliant, because I think, I think everybody's heard of the other stuff that we spoke about before. This is the piece I've not heard before. This is I've
Mhm.
listened to enough. Let's say, podcasts around agencies and this and that, and I think this is the piece that gets missed so much, and is not even recommended, because everybody thinks that everybody has this competition. So in that sense, this is like Nick is living proof, and you're sort of living proof that reaching out to people, even if they're within your space, they're better than you. Could be even somebody who is in a similar space, and just having a conversation in a more collaborative way, just asking somebody could really sort of, let's say, help you improve. Of course, Nick, we also want to ask you a little bit. Something that we usually ask is, what are the kind of tools that you use, Nick? I heard Notion. What are the other kinds of tools that you use for personal or for managing business or running business?
Yeah, so we use Notion to run pretty much all our operations. We use many requests to do client portal stuff. Zapier is the lifeblood of our company. Everything is contingent on that. Stripe is a very big one. Those are kind of like the main stuff that most businesses will probably use. And then kind of more niche specific things. We use Inboxy for email deliverability, quick lines to write personalized lines for our outbound stuff. And then we're looking at, those are pretty much all the main tools, I would say. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, Slack for team communications.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the big bulk of it.
And your personal, of course, is, I'm sure it's similar. You're probably on Twitter all day, every day, trying to figure out how, connecting with people. And anything else apart from Twitter you use? Are you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, we use the social profiles like LinkedIn and Twitter. Definitely use those a lot. Hype Fury, I guess that helps. And it's really built around Twitter, so we use that as well.
Twitter scheduling, Hype Fury.
Yeah, Hype Fury. It's like a Twitter automation kind of thing.
Yep.
Like it schedules tweets for you. So that's been very big, because I don't have too much time to be on Twitter all day.
Right. Got it. That's brilliant. And then Nick, what we do is we end with you've only given us a few quotable tweets, but you'll have to give us one more, which is what will be like let's say, the single whatever advice you can come up with, or thing that you want to share with somebody who is young or maybe just starting off with their agency. One thing that you want to give them. Could be a tactic, could be a belief, could be anything that you've learned or you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier, but I think it's very, very important for anybody that's listening. And you can never prepare for scale. Just let stuff break, and it's totally okay. But make it your obligation and duty to go and fix what breaks, and then provide even better service to your customer. And if you do that, your business is always going to grow.
Boom. All right, Nick, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing all this stuff, man. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on.